In 1969, the Texas Longhorns completed their championship chase with a storybook moment. It's time to turn back the clock 50 years and reminisce on the glory once again.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the game of the year. At their own 43 and a half. And going to go to Randy Whistle.
The late 60s marked a shift of the paradigm in the United States. Nonetheless, the framework of teamwork remained constant, sharpening their focus on the drive toward success. Number 24, Ted Coy, halfback, had a key role. He was a captain of the UT football team who averaged 5.3 yards a carry that season. He was a second-round pick in the NFL draft who played for the Raiders and Bills from 1970 to 1974. Number 84, Tom Campbell, defensive back, had a significant impact. He was a consensus All-Southwest Conference defensive back, leading the conference in interceptions. He played alongside his twin brother Mike, who was a defensive back as well, and his dad, Mike, the defensive coordinator. The 1960s were a time of change. This was a change that rippled across the nation.
The nation as a whole was in transition, and nobody knew what things were transitioning to. You had the Vietnam War, you had the social unrest, you had the integration issues, just had a lot of things that were very important and change was taking place. And the campuses across the nation were not immune to that. There was a lot of unrest, a lot of different directions going. People weren't sure what the next step was.
You know, and then 69 came around. Things changed in 69 with the Vietnam War and the protesters.
Even though they were surrounded by angst, the Longhorns concentrated on the task at hand.
Football was basic. Football was not changing.
The 60s were a time of change. Could you reflect on what it was like to be a college student during this time frame?
No. Being an athlete we were college students first, really. We didn't lift weights. We went to school, we went to classes. If you didn't make your classes, you got to run stadium steps because they found out you did cut a class.
The seeds for the team were planted by Texas head coach Darrell K. Royal.
Played for Darrell K. Royal, who's a Texas legend. So what was it like to play for him?
Coach Royal was a very interesting coach in person. First of all, excellent coach, as the records show. The stadium's named after him, very rightly so. Very successful by all those measures. But Coach Royal had a lot of different, very positive attributes about him. For one, I played under him for 4 years. I never ever heard him raise his voice. Yet he could just walk into a room and the room becomes just totally silent.
Never had that many conversations with Coach Royal at all. I honestly can't tell you what he was like on the practice field. I know that if he was unhappy, everybody knew about it.
As a team, we would gather at 4 o'clock. I do not ever remember Coach Royal saying, okay, I want all you guys to be on time. Yet, if you weren't there at least 10 minutes before you were late. coach. So it was just the mindset.
They never listened, for the most part. Coach Royal and my dad and all of the coaches never criticized a player out there on the practice field. They didn't get in your, most of the time they didn't get in your face and scream at you like you hear about doing, or you maybe even see today.
He would come in the back, and so typically guys would start talking here and the conversation there, and so as the room filled up and people talking, the noise level got louder and louder and louder to where you'd almost have to be screaming. But yet, the moment he walked in the door, when he got to the front of the room and turned around, it was dead silent. He never ever told us, guys, get quiet, but you knew you did not want to be talking. Coach Roy was about to be talking.
You also played for your dad, who was the Longhorn defensive coach, Mike Campbell. What was his philosophy, not only for you, but for all of his players?
His philosophy was that you're out there for a reason. You're a football player. He's not your mother. He's not your daddy. If you can't get the job done, then go sit on the sideline. And he'll find someone who will. He didn't take prisoners. There wasn't anything fancy about him at all. All of the coaches, my dad wasn't any different than any other coach. All of the coaches were. Think about these guys. Many of them, almost all of them, they grew up during the Depression. They were in World War II, in the Army, the Air Corps, the Navy. They weren't going to baby anybody. We were doing a punt block drill. And I was on the left end. This is before I played defensive back. I was a linebacker on the left side, and Mike was the right side. And we were trying to block a punt, not just us, all of us. And we weren't blocking it. We kept doing it over and over and over. We weren't getting the punt block, and you can see my dad was getting agitated. No one was getting in to block the punt. So this next time we did it, unfortunately, I didn't have this conversation with Mike, but we both came in at the same time. And this time we both dove out there like it was picture day. And unfortunately, his helmet came right up underneath my face mask. It hit me right there and snapped these two teeth off. They just fell down in the grass. So now I'm on my knees looking for my teeth. I'm thinking maybe I can go to the dentist and they can glue them back in. I'm 19 years old. What do I know? And finally I realized that my dad was standing right in front of me as I'm going through the blades of grass looking for my teeth. And I finally found him, and I was on my knees, I was holding him up, and I realized there's my dad. And as I was looking at him, I said, "Daddy, Mike just knocked my two front teeth out." And I'm thinking that he's going to try to say, "Well, Tom, you need to go see the trainer, get to the locker room." Instead, he looked at all of the other 21 players that were standing around waiting for instruction for him. They're wondering what is going on. I'm looking for somebody to feel sorry for me and send me to the locker room. He looked at me and looked at the teeth. Then he turned around and looked at everyone else and hollered, "Do it again!" And he turned around and walked away. That's when I threw my teeth at him, and they're still out there, I guess. And we did it 3 more times. My teeth were bleeding. They hurt. I had blood coming down. He said, "Do it again." We did it 3 more times. And he said, "You guys are never going to block this punt. Go on to the locker room." Wow. That's the way he was.
That sounds really tough.
Well, they didn't call him Iron Mike for nothing.
Yeah, he definitely earned that nickname.
Yeah. Anyway. He was tougher. I think he was probably tougher. Most of our teammates say he was tougher on Mike and I than he were the other players, but he had to be. He had to be. If they had something to say to you, they did their coaching, but they weren't there to praise you. They weren't building you up with praise. My dad threw compliments around like they were manhole covers. You knew, but you always knew where you stood with him. I was nervous after every game. Remember, I came in the locker room on a Monday and found out I was now first team. How did I know the next Monday I'm not going to come in and find out I've been demoted again? I was always nervous that I was going to find out I'm second team again. My dad was not called the defensive head coach. He wasn't called the defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coach, but everyone knew that he was in charge. And Coach Royal never came down to the defensive end to say something to my dad and say, Mike, you ought to do this, or you think you ought to put that player. If they were going to have that conversation, it would be in the coach's locker room. Always technical. There wasn't any brainiac stuff going on. There wasn't any enthusiasm going on. I've seen players start crying and walk off the field. That was never good. But Coach Royal was respected, but let me say that we respected all of our coaches just as much as we respected Darryl Roy.
Why the Stadium bears his name?
Texas wanted to recapture their national championship magic. They started to lay the foundation for a return, creating an intense environment.
69 teams started really in 68 and really in 67. And I say that because Texas won the national championship in 1963. Coach Royal's first national championship year. Almost won it. There's a couple of ifs. The 64 team would have won another national championship. But then they kind of hit hard times and went 6-4 from 65, 66, 67 seasons, which for some programs that would be okay. But for Texas, especially coming off of conference championships and the national championship, that was unacceptable, totally beneath the standard. So after the 67 season, changes had to be made. And we as players knew it, coaches knew it, the fan base knew it.
We were building on that, and so we had expectations that we were going to be just as good as we were in 1968. That's what we were building on. That's what our belief was.
And 68 was the year when Coach Royal went to the Wishbone and switched James
That's
Street
correct.
to quarterback.
That's right.
How much of a difference did that make for the team?
Well, the main difference was we started winning. There were times, a key to stopping the wishbone is to be able to see it on a regular basis, and our defense saw it in all of the scrimmages that we had, and we got used to it, and we had very good talent. If you don't have talent and you don't see the wishbone very often, it's very, very hard offense. In fact, more teams ought to play it today than do.
68 was the start of the change. We put in a new offense called the wishbone. We go to, had success with it, and then the next year, 69, we knew the stage was set for a good team. Didn't know how well it would be. We had injuries to contend with, if at all. We had a lot of factors that had to come together, but we knew the stage was set, having come off of that 67 rebuilding year, 68, here we are at 69, with a chance to be good.
In 1969, the Longhorns capitalized off of the momentum from 1968, showing they were back. The insatiable hunger for wins propelled the Longhorns to new heights. The offense averaged 472 yards per game, scoring 57 touchdowns. The defense was just as impressive, recording 27 interceptions as a team, the most for any Texas team ever at the time.
We're going to be just as good in 69 as we were in 68 when the season ended. The wishbone was certainly as good in 69 as it was in 68.
So the 1969 team was a tenacious crew.
Very much so. And a hard-working group, talented group, and people that had a focus, because we knew what it was like not to win in 67. And I say not to win, 6-4 in Texas is not winning. And so we knew we'd been on both sides of the fence, and we wanted to win.
Camaraderie was really important, and we were all good friends. Everybody knew we played together and played hard.
A twist of fate gave the Longhorns an opportunity to win the ultimate prize.
That year, 69, Ohio State started out as the number one team in the nation. And they had won the national championship the year before in '68 with predominantly sophomore juniors. So they had pretty much everybody back, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion they were headed to winning the national championship, which in a sense took a lot of pressure off of us, because then all we needed to do was do our best and play football and win the games. And so we kind of marched through that season, focusing on ourselves and the next opponent, and won all the games. And then at the end of the season, Michigan, thank you Michigan, beats Ohio State. We move up to number 1, and then had the rest of the season finish as number 1.
Anyway, we got bigger and stronger and faster, and even today when you recruit a kid, you don't know is he as big as he's going to get, is he as fast as he's going to get, is he aggressive? You can't tell that by looking at film. And we got bigger and faster and stronger. The goal was to win the conference and win the Cotton Bowl. It had nothing to do about being number 1. Our goal was never start season, we're going to win the national championship. First of all, Ohio State brought a lot of people back. They'd won it in 1968, and the expectation is they'd probably win it again. So we weren't going to focus on all we're going to be as number 2. We're focusing on winning the conference and going to the Cotton Bowl and beating somebody. That was our goal.
Pre-game activity that's concluded. We'll be back for the opening kickoff here at Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville.
Let's talk about one of the most special games in the history of college football that season between Texas and Arkansas. The day you played Arkansas in Fayetteville, it was a gloomy, cold day. Did this impact the way you played?
The weather was the least of our concern. Now, the defensive backs did have to make some adjustments after pregame warm-up because they were having some footing problems, and defensive backs have particularly have to rely on their footing because the receiver knows where they're going. The defensive back has to make their cuts off of that. So footing was probably a little more crucial for them. So they made some shoe changes.
It was splotchy. It was just a mist, and there were areas of the field that were dry. There were areas of the field that were wetter than the other ones. And as a defensive back, all of a sudden you go from a dry area of the field and you need to make a cut, and that receiver knows where he's going. You don't know where he's going, and all of a sudden you plant your foot and it slips. That impacted us all over the field at every position. So finally we all switched to those cleats, and we were okay after that. But it was somewhat difficult for the protectors the first 4 to find the right shoes.
I was not aware of how cold it was, and years past I've gotten to know a lot of the Arkansas players, and they say the same thing, that weather was not a factor.
Very loud. It was like playing indoors. The clouds were really low that day, and it wasn't a factor. It didn't rain enough where if we were going to throw the football, it was going to be a wet football. They changed the football out every play anyway. It was never hard rain.
And Scott Henderson blocked the punt. And that action.
When the Longhorns went down in the first half 7-0, did any doubt creep in?
None whatsoever. Not to cut you off, but yeah, that's a good question, because here you are, number 1 and number 2 team in the nations playing against each other, and if one team gets down, that could be. But that goes all the way back up to Coach Roy. He was very organized. He put a team on the field that was very confident, not confident, very confident. And as a player and as a team, you knew you had the tools to play and to win. I don't know that any of us ever had doubts. Yes, we were mindful that, particularly in the second half, that time was starting to become a factor. But we had enough confidence in each other and in ourselves and as a team that, yes, we're up against a good team, but we've got the confidence to get the job.
It was that confidence that kept you from letting the Hogs bring you down.
Exactly. And of course, as the game turned out, we were fortunate. We prevailed. We were up against a good team, but Arkansas was up against a good team as well.
When you did get down, what did you do to get back on your feet?
We didn't do anything. Good question. We didn't do anything different. And that goes all the way, again, back to The program was sound and solid. We had confidence in it. We've been working, when I say program, not just the plays, but everything, the conditioning, the workouts, your teammates, what everybody had been through from spring training to the off season to the two-a-days and then the development of the team during the season. So we had a lot of confidence and we knew what we were doing.
Things just weren't working, and it was a good defensive scheme by Arkansas. It was really what it was. You'd see the number of total yards on both teams was about the same. The number of passing yards was about the same, although all of ours came on one play. And then the number of first downs was about the same. The difference was the turnovers. And I'm going to give credit to the Arkansas defense for creating these turnovers. They didn't happen in a vacuum. It's not like our players were just dropping the football. That wasn't it. They were getting hit, and they were legitimate fumbles.
Gets a good kick, McClure. Bring it down at the 9. That is Fire. 15, 20, 25, 30. Coming outside. Gets away again. And there is a loose ball. Arkansas has come up with it. 15 seconds left in the third quarter. Montgomery. Dykes. Touchdown. 29 yards.
In the third quarter, and they'd make it 14-0, but still, when it got to be close to the fourth quarter and nothing is happening, we're starting to think this isn't going to turn out good. We're still positive. We think we can still win the football game. And when I say we, I'm talking about the defense. Well, we weren't negative. We weren't sitting on the sideline saying we're not going to win this football game. But we knew the offense had to find a way of scoring.
It's just a matter of making it work. And, you know, each play is a new play.
Now it's 2nd and 9 for Texas. Start of the fourth quarter. Jimmy Street in trouble. Gets away. There he goes. And Texas is going for 2. And Street. What a heads-up play by Jimmy Street.
What a huge thing that was to go for 2. And all of a sudden, we're back in it. We know we're going to win the football game. There was no doubt at all by then. So it's 14-8 by then. So, you know, we had the whole fourth quarter to score another touchdown. We didn't know we were going to wait till 3 or 4 minutes in the game to do it. But our defense, I'm going to tell you, our defense kept us in the game.
We had the confidence that, last play didn't work, but this next one will. So it was a permeation of that confidence from Coach Wall to the coaches to the quarterback James Street to all the players. And we just knew we had the confidence that we could get the job.
And then on the first play of the fourth quarter, James is running for his life. You know, Arkansas, it could have easily been a sack but he breaks loose and runs all the way for a touchdown.
At their own 43.5. And going for broke to Randy Peschel, and Peschel catches the ball. What a toss. Randy goes. Touchdown, Longhorns, and they have.
I can't watch. I'm sitting on the bench. I cannot look to see, we gonna get a first down? And the crowd is going crazy. They're screaming. Everyone on our sideline is, but I can't watch. And then all of a sudden I hear the crowd go silent and our teammates are hollering and screaming. I knew something good had happened. I thought we'd gotten 5 yards. We'd gotten the first down. I didn't know that we'd even thrown the football. And the ball is down there on the 10 or 11 yard line, which, by the way, 10 or 11 yard line is still a long way to go. We got to score a touchdown. Anyway, it worked out.
Walk us through and relive the moment where the Razorbacks quarterback Bill Montgomery throws a pass.
Well, we had scored and we'd gone up 15-14. When you're talking about the interception, my interception?
Yeah, I was talking about your interception.
Okay.
Sorry.
When let me say, when Arkansas got the ball after our go-ahead touchdown, you look at the scoreboard and it's still 4 minutes to go in the game. That's an eternity. You know, today there might be 3 scores in the final 4 minutes. Back then, that's an eternity, especially for a passing team. Well, you just and by the way, all they got to do is kick a field goal. Anyway, we didn't make it easy on them. We didn't give them up any long passes or long runs. They worked their way down the field. And I'm going to tell you this, people don't talk about this, as an instrumental play in the key play in that drive. And we didn't make it easy. They had earlier in that drive, they got 4th down in about a half a yard, and they did whatever the play they ran, they got the 1st down. But they had to use a timeout. So now they got 4 more downs, they're running plays and this and that. They're moving the ball towards our goal line, and they've got a really good field goal kicker. But we're not making it easy on them. And there was one play that people don't talk about it that that is just so critical. Montgomery rolls out to his right, and I think it's Benitez is chasing him, and he grabs him around his lower legs, and Montgomery and he pulls his legs out, and he falls to the ground, but when he pulls his legs out, his shoe comes off. Back then, most players put a double knot in their shoes to make sure it wouldn't come off. Well, all of a sudden, here's Bill Montgomery, the quarterback, and the clock is running. And you didn't have injury timeout back then, and you didn't have timeout because you got a problem with your shoe and you got to get your shoe on. The clock is running. And Bill is trying to, you can see it on the film. He's trying to put his shoe on his foot, but it's a double knot. He cannot get his shoe on. And he finally turns to the ref and does that and uses his last timeout.
That's crucial.
It was crucial. So they're now out of timeouts. And we knew then, when they had no more timeouts, and they're still out on the 40-yard line, they had a ways to go. We knew they could no longer throw the ball over the middle. They were going to run out of time. So we knew they were going to have to throw the ball toward the sideline, and it made it where our defensive backs and linebackers could play a much tighter role when we're covering a receiver, because I knew on that final interception, and it was a man-to-man defense, but I also knew that they could not throw the Reese back over the middle. He was going to have to run either a long pattern or do an out. And when he cut, I just was able to cut at the same time. I wasn't worried at all about him cutting and going back across the middle of the field. They'd have run out of time. And it was only about a minute left on that happened, I think. Maybe it was 2 minutes. I don't think there was that much time. But he planted his left foot, and I was just able to cut right in front of him and make the interception. And there was a little bit of a fight over the ball. I had help, you know. He had his hands on it, and I had my hands on it, but I had a stronger position. I just yanked it out away from his hands and fell to the ground, and that was it.
So you sealed the victory, and Texas made history.
Yeah.
22 to go. Here is Bill Montgomery. Trying to get Reese. Texas has come up with a big play. And very fitting, Tom Campbell, he and his twin brother.
And it worked because Texas made history. You were national champions.
It was special.
definitely was.
As the final touch to this, the game of the year, as the nation's #1 team, Texas had to come from behind 14-0 to go ahead 15-14 as the clock is stopped unofficially on the board to our right, the south end of Razorback Stadium, 6 seconds to go. Austin, Texas, and the eyes of Texas will undoubtedly be heard very, very soon on the far side of the field. It is a song written in 1903 by John Lang Sinclair. Let's listen.
History. Could you take us into the locker room when President Nixon entered, presented you with the flag declaring you as national champions, and describe the feeling yourself?
Quite unusual because, as we talked, a lot goes into a football team, and a lot goes into a football team that wins the national championship. And in those days, some polls declared the national champion at the end of the regular season. Nowadays, all of them wait till after the bowl game. So at least we knew that a number of polls would have us as the #1 team in the nation. So, that's that euphoric feeling of we're on top. Worked hard, we got here, and we're the #1 team in the nation. And then at the same time, here's the President of the United States being one of them. And, he's in the locker room. So the security folks were kind of standing on the side, and he was just bumping shoulders with the rest of us and speaking to us and shaking hands. And then ABC had kind of a makeshift platform that basically was some folded tables that the legs were folded up, and so they got President Nixon had brought a plaque that was a presidential proclamation of the #1 team in the nation. Didn't have it filled in because he was going to give it to either Arkansas or Texas, whoever won the game, and so he was going to make that presentation to Coach Royal. Well, typical of Coach Royal, he had had nothing to do with it without the captain. So he got the captains up there, and so made the presentation. And so afterwards, President Nixon, was visiting with us, and he was not just a symbolic representation of the president. He was a true football fan.
It's cool, and to go on to win, that proves you deserve to be #1, and that's what you are.
Film to see when President Nixon was in our locker room. We weren't expecting him. First of all, until 2 minutes earlier, we weren't expecting to win the football game. And then all of a sudden we win. It's bedlam on the field. The whiskey bottles are flying past, but we got our helmets on. All the whiskey bottles flying over our heads, and then we're in the locker room. We were celebrating. It wasn't because we knew the President of the United States was going to be coming in there. We did not need the President to help us celebrate this. But when it's announced that President Nixon was coming into the game, into the locker room, the tenor of the locker room just changed. We weren't hollering and screaming. We wanted to meet the President. Everyone was getting up there to shake hands with President Nixon. I think I shook his hand 2 or 3 times. And it's just a once in a lifetime. You cannot dream this. You can't make it up. Hollywood cannot make something like this up.
Followed it. He spoke very intelligently, and he was just, you could tell he was elated to be with us. But what really knocked me off my feet was into the next week. That was Saturday. The next Tuesday, the New York Touchdown Club, as they do every year, they would present the MacArthur Bowl trophy to the #1 team in the nation. So that presentation was going to be on that following Tuesday. So Coach Royal insisted the 3 captains, James Street, Glenn Hoss, and myself, go with him to the banquet. And so it was a huge gathering. Waldorf Astoria, the main ballroom was completely open, packed, several thousand people, us. And before he sits down, he turns to me, looks me in the eye, and he says, "Hello, Ted. Good to see you again. James, good to see you. That was a great game. Glenn, what a game. And it's the only time in my life I couldn't speak. I was totally speechless. The President of the United States, in the midst of all this fanfare and Hail the Chief being played, he's looking at me, a kid from a small town, Belleville, in Central Texas, and looking at me and calling me by my first name. It was really an unusual feeling. He was a genuine fan, truly interested in college football.
That's the best part of the game.
It really is. It really is.
And speaking of the game, it was obviously a memorable game. Was there a specific memorable moment for you on that day?
The thing I remember the most is how gradual the realization was that we had won the national championship, because it's a goal every team in Division I football has at the start of the season. Every team starts out undefeated up time, and so you're always working for the top prize. And lots of factors enter into it: talent, injuries, and so forth. And so for us to have finally won the national championship was something that took a while to totally realize how special indeed that is.
Making that interception, I realized what a critical interception it was, because if he catches it, he's going to go out of bounds, and there's still a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go in the game. They got plenty of time to get a few more yards and kick the winning field goal. But I wasn't thinking about those things. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't anxious. I was just thinking about doing my job. I didn't know that he was going to throw the ball in my direction. And so I think about it today, for many, many years, it was neat to think about. But I have to admit, as time has gone on, more and more people make a bigger deal out of it than I ever did. He knew I'd come through with some big interceptions for UT. So it's a neat feeling. Foot onto out of the airplane. All of a sudden you were just lost in a mob. Just lost in a mob. You didn't know where you were, who was next to you. These people were out of their minds. There was like 5 or 8 or 10,000 people out there. And I didn't even get down to the drag.
Mr. Coy, thank you for contributing to the University of Texas with that national championship team and putting in the time and effort with that whole process and providing fascinating insight here today. I really appreciate it.
My honor, my pleasure to talk about it here, especially. Thank you.
That you brought today is absolutely insightful and fascinating. It shows you the behind the scenes of Texas football, and I appreciate everything you did for that team that season and for this university. It's a pleasure to meet you, Tom.
Thanks very much. Enjoyed it.